Hey guys, it's Kathy. I hope you're doing really well. So you made it. We made it to the live stream. So this is a special live stream because I really just want to thank you all, every single one of you who, even if you hate me, who have watched some of my videos, my live streams, or my shorts. I got I got sex on the beach incense going. So everything smells great here. Everything is, we're in a good mood. No tragedies today. We're going to have a fun live stream. Now, we're doing this with my vibers. So there will be pausing and there will be talking and there will be laughing. There will not be fighting. We never fight though. We always have a great chat. This chat is the best chat anywhere on YouTube. Uh, and if you, since I'm in the middle of the day, some of you may not have ever experienced the chat before. So I suggest you get in there and say hi, especially say hi, because I think if you chat during a live stream, you have a better chance of getting a gifted membership. And the only way I know to thank you all so much for all the support you've given me, this channel, over the years is to give you some memberships. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We will be playing a court video if any of us even watch it or pay attention. It's very interesting. It's this man is got convicted of murder. This is not a murder trial. He was convicted in the 80s of murder, and he's on death row. He was sentenced to death by firing squad. Firing squad. Firing squad. For real, for real. And they're saying, "Oh, you can't kill him now. He has dementia." Because it's been 39 years since he was convicted. 39 years they've waited because of appeals, and you know how the court system is. You know, we just watched a habeas earlier where they've been in jail for murder for many, many, many years, and the habeas could let him back out again. Who knows? We don't know. But they're saying that he is not mentally competent enough to be executed. Anyway, I showed you a preview of where the son, who now has gray hair, came up and told the courts what he thought. We're going to see that again today. Make sure your gifting is turned on. If you don't know how, Google it quick, because you might not get a membership if you're gifting. You will not get a membership if your gifting is off. Ray Bay became a member during OJ this morning. Congratulations. Martha has been a member forever. It is like my number one commenter on my videos, the comments. She's always there with a comment. Thank you, Martha. Thank you. All right. We're going to get started with just a little snippet of of the news back in the day, back in the 80s when this happened. And just so you know, we have Josh to thank. JJJ. So he lives in Utah. We never get Utah. Today we're doing Utah. He lives in Utah and this case came up. And he's like, "Oh, the Vibers have got to see this." So that's what we're playing. Tina's been with me so long. She remembers my crappy old laptop with the horrible audio. She remembers when there was no camera. It was just me echoing and crackling in the background when I was doing all YouTube judges, which I don't do YouTube judges. If this is your first time during my live, I try not to do YouTube judges. I do judges no one else does. Colorado, New Jersey, Indiana, South Dakota. Today we're doing Utah. I think Maiko just turned me on to Missouri, but that's going to be a little tricky. The way I'm going to have to think about that. Dina is also a member on Patreon and Twitch. Thank you so much. So about Twitch, um, if you watch live streams, if you watch my live streams, and you do not have YouTube Premium, and you have to watch ads, if that annoys you, you can use your Amazon Prime membership, link it with Twitch, and you can watch my live stream as it happens right now on Twitch. And if you link your Amazon Prime membership with that, you get to subscribe to one channel for free with that membership. So you could subscribe to my channel, then you can watch live streams with no ads. Very good. Very good. I know how people feel about the ads. Okay. I remember when I was demonetized, and you guys just stuck with me. I mean, you weren't allowed to become a member. You weren't allowed to super chat. You weren't allowed to do all that stuff. And it was annoying and it was frustrating. And, we just kept going like nothing happened. And we got through it. It was perfectly fine. So our community, we really do love each other. We have a great Discord. We know each other. We're very good friends. You can be a part of that. You can just join Discord. And yeah, I got sex on the beach going. Sex on the beach going. Because this is a special live stream. Josh gave us this. And we're going to watch it. So this right here is a clip from the news station in the 80s when this first happened. Here, let's watch.
On February 23, 1986, Salt Lake County deputies found this gasomat station empty, the cashier gone, coat left behind, and $70 missing. 26-year-old Maureen Hunsaker was working that day when Ralph Menzies showed up. Later that night, Maureen called her husband saying that she'd been robbed and kidnapped. During their call, the line went dead. Maureen never made it home, and 2 days later, her body was found. Here is a news report from the 1980s detailing Menzies' arrest.
The man suspected of abducting Maureen Hunsaker was already in jail when he became a prime murder suspect. West Valley Police had jailed Menzies on a warrant for theft. His actions at the booking desk would eventually expose him as an accused killer.
The officers that arrested him asked him if he had anything in his pockets that he wanted to divulge, at which time the individual became extremely agitated and nervous, and he jumped and ran into the back room area.
Hunsaker's driver's license and other identification were pulled from a clothes bin in the booking area. Investigators say the ID was dropped there the same day two witnesses saw Hunsaker and a man at the Storm Mountain picnic area. Hunsaker's body was later found in the picnic area. She had been strangled. Her throat had been cut. Detectives say they used jail booking records to narrow down the list of suspects and a description of Menzies and the car he was allegedly driving to pinpoint him as a suspect. A later search of Menzies' home turned up additional evidence, including the victim's purse, according to the probable cause statement attached to the charges. His home was only a few blocks away from the gasomat station where Hunsaker was robbed and abducted. Brian Schiffer, KUTV News.
The case quickly made headlines as Menzies was charged with murder. His cellmate later told detectives that
Now, that was just a quick clip from back in the 80s when it first happened and they first caught him and he was first arrested. Then he went through a trial saying he didn't do it, even though all the evidence pointed to him. He had all of her stuff with him. Kimby's here. Hi. So now we're going to go to the latest hearing. And in the latest hearing, it's 39 years later, and he's been on death row for that long. And they're saying, you're not allowed to execute him by firing squad. So here we go. See what the judge says.
Menzies. They know I come in? Okay, all right.
Pegs is here. Hi, Pegs.
Mr. Menzies has come into the courtroom. Good afternoon, Mr. Menzies. Counsel, time is set for a hearing on Mr. Menzies' renewed or successive petition to inquire into his competency. I've reviewed all the briefing and exhibits that were submitted. I had expected this would be just argument, but did either side come with any intent or to present any additional witnesses, testimony, things like that on the petition?
No, I mean, I just thought this was oral argument
Okay,
today.
that's
We
what I was
haven't been
expecting,
provided
so.
anything from the
That was our understanding as well, Your Honor.
Okay, well, let me just set expectations right out of the gate. Having looked at everything, I think this is something where I'd like to hear argument. I may have some questions, and then I will take it under advisement and issue a written ruling as quickly as I can. Okay, so Mr. Zuckerman, this is your petition. I'll give you the floor.
Thank you. Your Honor, Mr. Menzies' dementia has gotten worse. That's what dementia does. It gets worse. And every expert that testified before this court at the competency hearing said that that was what was going to happen. The life expectancy for someone who's diagnosed with vascular dementia is 5 years. Mr. Menzies' fall started in 2018. That's what kicked this process off. In June 2023 is when he had the MRI. And at that point, the MRI showed the most severe level of damage on the, appropriate scale consistent with vascular dementia. So by that point, he already had it and it wasn't new. Of course, he was diagnosed in January 2024. The textbook progression for vascular dementia is physical and corresponding cognitive decline. What the case law talks about is that the amount of time that has passed since the initial evaluations is a factor in assessing the changed circumstances and in the decision to reopen competency proceedings. Dr. Brooks from the Department of Health and Human Services last evaluated Mr. Menzies 1 year ago. Dr. Silvasi, also from DHHS, 14 months ago. The state's expert, Dr. Green, 13 months ago. The state's other expert, Dr. Thompson, 13 months ago. The evidentiary hearing itself occurred 8 months ago. What we have here is a situation where we have a man who has vascular dementia. We have a documented severe hypoxic event. We have cognitive decline that is not just evidence coming from us or our experts, but is coming from his own Department of Corrections caseworker. And then we have expert evaluations from our experts that say that his decline has occurred and it is significant, and that not only is there, can he not have a rational understanding, but there's a substantial question about whether he even meets the statutory awareness standard.
Mr. Zuckerman, can I ask, that severe hypoxic event, that happened, I think, 3 months before we held argument on the original petition.
Yeah.
Help me with the substantial change prong here. I mean, is this really not something that the court could have been raised with the court as part of the original petition?
Monica with the most gorgeous hair on the internet. You're welcome. Thank you so much. Thank you.
It seems like a lot of what you're describing was, in fact, the state of things before I made my determination.
But it was not the state of things since he's been evaluated. I mean, we didn't have these records. As soon as we got the records and as soon as we, realized that there was this decline and sort of that we were in a situation where, we had the evidence to present this to the court, we did. The question is not what's happened since the ruling came out. I mean, I understand that that's like the technical language of the statute, but of course the question is, what's changed since he was last evaluated? I mean,
but I'm kind of interested in the language of the statute, because the statute is, has there been a substantial change in circumstances since my determination?
So, I mean, if you look at his caseworker's declaration, and this is coming from the Department of Corrections. This isn't like a witness that's biased in our favor. This isn't even one of our experts. But if you look at the caseworker's declaration, she says, In the last 6 months, I've observed a significant decline in Mr. Menzies' functioning physically and verbally, particularly in the last 3 to 4 months. She said she recently had a 5-minute conversation with him and did not believe he was processing anything I was saying to him. I have personal experience with my aging grandparents and father-in-law, which helped me realize that Mr. Menzies wasn't really there when I was speaking with him. He's been unable to dig into the topics we discuss. His responses are surface level at best. He couldn't hit the points contextually. I mean, this is recent evidence from a Department of Corrections caseworker who has had the opportunity to observe him regularly over the course of the past year, who is saying even in just the last 3 to 4 months, there is a significant decline that she has seen. The question is constitution. I mean, the statute is what it is, but this court is also bound by the 8th Amendment to the United States Constitution, which says that someone who is incompetent cannot be executed. And he has not been evaluated by an independent examiner in basically a year. And the state now seeks to have their examiner go in and conduct a competency evaluation for Mr. Menzies while simultaneously arguing against having an independent evaluation. And that's not right. This court cannot allow an execution to go forward where there is a substantial question about his competency. And we have presented a prima facie case that there is. We have presented changes of circumstances, both since the court has issued its ruling, but
I'm not going to comment on the actual execution, but I will say, I'm just going to use punishment. I will say if he was dementia-free and mentally okay for 80% of the time he was on death row, it should be fine, which is what it is, like 30 years, 32 years. He's been perfectly fine.
Importantly, and I think that, what is relevant for the constitutional questions before this court is when the evaluations last occurred, because that was the timestamp that the court was evaluating him based on.
I know. If the family of the victim is no longer in pain, if that changed and they no longer miss their mommy, then I'll agree with the defense.
Those were the opinions that the court relied on in its decision. So if the opinions that the court relied on in its decision were based on something that happened a year from now, then evidence that has happened since then is relevant to its determination about whether it is necessary to reopen competency. Otherwise, we're in a situation where we have presented what the statute says is allegations of alleging with specificity a change in circumstances that raises a substantial change in circumstances that raises a significant doubt or question about his competency. We've got expert evaluations that basically say he can't form an awareness of the link. He doesn't even meet the statutory standard. And what we're asking this court to do, like our evidentiary hearing, it was a 6-day evidentiary hearing, and mostly it was about proving to this court that he has dementia, because that was contested by the state. This does not have to be the same type of process, because the experts already know that he has dementia. The only question that'll be before this court is whether the dementia has escalated to the point where he is not competent, and whether the factors that this court relied upon in finding him competent no longer apply. Contrary to the state's arguments, we don't have to prove that the court's competency determination was wrong. That's not what this is about. We have to prove that things have changed, and they have. And it's documented through, all the experts testified that hypoxia is something that can immediately and severely affect someone's decline, right? The state's experts testified about that. The DHS experts testified that it's uncontested, right? We had basically a 3-month history of difficulty breathing, conversational dyspnea, which is noted in the records, which is basically having to stop every few words and take a breath, because he can't even speak a sentence. And that's what the correctional health services records say. This isn't coming from us. And then that culminated in a hypoxic event that's not just like, 88% you got to go to the hospital for emergency treatment. 85% is severe hypoxia. And Mr. Menzies, got as low as 84%. Excuse me. The state argues, well, we don't know how long he was, under that, under 85 for. We don't know, his later blood oxygen showed normal levels. That's not the question. Of course it showed normal levels. If it didn't, he'd be dead. The point is, if a hypoxic event happens, that is when the damage.
Oh, I don't mind muting that man one bit. Ha! Thank you, Sally. That's awesome.
Damage can be done. So physical change by itself is not sufficient to raise a sufficient question about competency. We concede that. Physical change is not the question here. But what we have is a clear formula for exactly what the experts say happens with the progression of dementia. We have severe, decline. We have a hypoxic event. We have the assignment of an ADA worker because he can no longer perform his daily living tasks, something that this court relied on. Testimony from Dr. Green, in determining him competent, that he was able to do all of his, or many of his activities of daily living. Now the prison has determined that he meets the American Disabilities Act guidelines in order to have an ADA worker. And over that period of time, and then oxygen, right? Like he needs supplemental access to oxygen, which is a relatively new development. Due to the hypoxia, due to the trouble breathing, which is exactly what the experts say could cause this type of cognitive decline. So that's the first step. We've got the physical, issues that can lead to cognitive decline. It doesn't necessarily mean it did, but it can. And then we've got the next step. We've got a declaration from his caseworker saying, over the last 6 months, I have seen a substantial decline. I see him regularly, and this is something I've noticed. I have experience with this based on my parents who are elderly, and this is what I'm seeing. I'm having conversations with him, and he's not there. He's not grasping what we're talking about. These are records coming from the Department of Corrections. Not records, but this is a statement coming from a Department of Corrections employee. And it's something that this court has to take seriously.
Monica on Twitch, thank you for sending the bits. I appreciate it. Thank you.
And it's something that raises a significant question about whether he's competent. This court's findings are based on evaluations that were a year ago. The state's trying to get their expert in to evaluate Mr. Menzies for competency. They say they're doing that in response to the 2 reports that we submitted as part of our competency petition. Yet they don't want an independent evaluation. That's not right. And the constitutional law, and I believe the state statute, demands DHS evaluations. The statute contemplates that can occur within 60 days. Have the DHS evaluations, tell them to get the reports back in 60 days, set a hearing for the 61st day, and bring it in. Let's hear the testimony on it. If the court finds him competent, then issue the warrant. But allowing it to go forward when we have presented this evidence uncontested is constitutionally intolerable. If the court has questions sort of about, the awareness standard, we detailed it all in our briefs, and I don't want to, harp on.
Randy, thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it. I really do.
On things that the court doesn't need to hear, but I'm happy to go into sort of the specifics about that and why we believe it meets the standard if the court is interested.
Mr. Zuckerman, I'm interested in all of the argument that you want to present to me. So,
Okay.
this is, everything is helpful.
Well, we contested at the time, we conceded at the time of the hearing that Mr. Menzies was aware that he was being executed for the crime of murder. for the crime of murder of Maureen Hunsaker. We conceded that. We have now,
Say her name.
based on
Yes.
conversations with him, based on our expert evaluations, he couldn't even identify his criminal charges to Dr. Abram Silva. The state says that she should have asked him, you were sentenced to death.
Sally Port, thank you so much. Thank you for helping me mute this man. I love muting this man. Sally, I appreciate it.
For the murder of Maureen Hunsaker. Do you understand that? I mean, that's ridiculous. That's not how you assess whether someone understands that. Asking them a question that presupposes all the answers and asking them to say yes or no. And all the experts testified why. You have to, these questions have to be carefully crafted. The state criticizes our experts for not saying what the questions were, but they do. We detailed that. Dr. Abram Silva asks him.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Mr. Zuckerman? At the same time, if you've got a person who has no memory of, because of a mental illness, no memory of the crime, the trial,
Yeah.
the sentence,
Mhm.
there necessarily has to be some cueing to be able to determine whether they can reach a rational understanding here.
Right.
So how do we know that Mr. Menzies can't reach that understanding?
Jen, my unmarried love. Hold on, I got something for you, Jen. Jen, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
With some cueing. I mean, even if he doesn't remember,
Of course.
Ms. Hunsaker's first name, or
Yeah.
whether it was a jury or a judge that sentenced him, how do we know that with some cueing he couldn't reach that understanding?
That's a great question. First, Dr. Hyde testified to this court, here are the questions that I ask. And then, I cue and I sort of provide more cues to get to the point, to see if he can give me the right answer. And, at what point he can do that. Now, I understand this court's ruling on Dr. Hyde's understanding of the rational understanding standard. But this court found credible that Dr. Hyde testified about the things he asked Mr. Menzies and the answers that Mr. Menzies gave him. Now Dr. Hyde is saying, I did the same thing, and he wasn't even able to connect on an awareness level the crime and the punishment. Completely different from the question of rational understanding. The court's question is an important one. The court asks, how do we know? And I ask the same question, Judge, because we have presented a substantial question about whether he's competent, coming from medical records, Department of Corrections statements, our expert statements. There is only one way for this court to know that, and it's to do exactly what the statute says, to have an independent examiner go in there for the first time in a year, write a report, bring him back in 2 months, and have him report to this court on its findings.
I wonder if there's a statute, sir, that says when you are convicted of murder and sentenced to death that you should, be executed.
That is the only way for this court to know. Our responsibility and our burden today is not to prove that to this court. I believe that the evidence we presented does prove that, but that's not our burden. Our burden is to show a substantial change in circumstances that raises a significant question about his competency, based on medical records, based on statements of experts, based on observations of counsel, which is contemplated by the statute. But I mean, one of the state's biggest arguments, they spend pages on this, is that, counsel's observations shouldn't be considered,
Eileen, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
or that's not enough. I mean, I agree, it's probably not enough, but that's not what we're relying on. That's just like, that's a bonus, but it is contemplated by the statute. But, I think that most important, I think our experts' reports are really important, but I think most important before this court is the declaration of his case manager, who says, look, I've seen a big change, right? If that alone doesn't raise the question of whether, a further evaluation is warranted, then what can? I mean, you've got records from someone who is a statement from someone who's working for the Department of Corrections. She's the person that talks to him the most. She's his case manager. That's her job. And she says, I've seen a substantial decline. I talked to him and he's not really there. You know, take our expert statements for what they are.
Imagine having that job, being a case manager for someone who's been on death row for 39 years. I bet her day is chock full of work.
Maybe the court has doubts about them. I believe the expert statements by themselves meet the burden, because even if, you know, the court has questions about that, you know, that's why an independent evaluation is required for the court to be able to assess, you know, based on that independent evaluation, whether to give credit to our expert reports. But they raise a significant question. And when you combine them with a statement from his caseworker, there's absolutely no question that we've met our burden, both under the Constitution and under the statute.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Zuckerman. Mr. Boyer?
I'm not mad at you, Josh. I'm just very disappointed.
May it please the court, Daniel Boyer for the state. Menzies' successive petition is inadequate to warrant reopening competency proceedings. It does not raise a significant question about his ability to understand that he will be executed for.
Guys, do you see this right here? When this happens, there's a few of them. It's hard to tell from our chat which ones it is. But this is Monica getting 10 bits. 10 bits over in Twitch, because I'm streaming on Twitch too. And she did 5 bits, and she did 3 bits. So thank you so much, Monica. I'm going to try to figure out how to tell when it happens, but I appreciate it very, very, very much too. Also, Kay, thank you so much. We love you too, and we know that you've been through a move and all kinds of things in the last few months, and we are honored to be able to talk you through all of that. It's been rough for you. We know it's been rough for you because we all care about each other, and that's why I did this stream, because I just want to thank you guys. We all know that, you know, Kay had a huge life change, and we were all here for her. And she's still a Kay, which means she didn't figure it out. If you go into YouTube and you click to the top right, that circle with a K in it, and go to your channel, there you can edit that K to whatever you want. Thank you.
Murdering Maureen Hunsaker. I'd like to first address the standard. The statute creates 2 elements here that an inmate must establish. His petition has to, quote, specifically allege a substantial change in circumstances, and it has to raise a significant question about his competency to be executed. Requiring the petition to raise a significant question in addition to specifically alleging substantial change means that the petitioner may not rest on mere allegations, even if those allegations are specific. If the legislature had intended that an inmate could get repeat competency hearings based on mere allegations, even specific allegations, it would have written that into the statute. It would have tied specific allegations to both elements.
So, Mr. Boyer, what in your view is Mr. Menzies done here that is just mere allegations and doesn't reach that, you know, the line that you're drawing here? I mean, we've got an affidavit from somebody at the prison. We've got 2 evaluations. What's missing?
So the evaluations, I'll start with those. He would be unable to specifically allege the nature of the questions and answers, a comprehensive account of all of that, because the expert reports themselves don't contain that. They contain only a few of Menzies' answers to a few questions. We do not know the specific questions asked. They are not in quotations. We know some of his answers to questions.
Kimby, I love you. I love when you're a mod somewhere. It makes me feel good. You put out the messages you put out perfect messages. You do a great job. Thank you so much, Kimby. Thank you.
But importantly, we don't have a full account here. Menzies has argued, well, the experts don't need to fully document every question that they ask. Well, I think after this court's findings and conclusions, which relied heavily on the expert evaluations, the answers that Menzies gave and the questions that were asked, Menzies was on notice that this was highly relevant and that they needed to provide a full account of all of that. Moreover, the evaluations are deficient in the nature of the questions. They could have asked him directly, what conviction led to your death sentence? Why are you on death row?
Linus,
There isn't any of that. It's what are the charges associated with your
thank
sentence?
you.
As our brief
Linus.
argues, that's a confusing question. It could have prompted Menzies to think, well, okay, I need to name all of my charges associated with my sentence. It was confusing. Ask a direct question. And if that doesn't work, as Your Honor has asked counsel about, under Madison, ask cued questions if he lacks the memory, which we don't believe he does. In fact, we believe his own proffer shows that he is aware that Ms. Hunsaker was the victim in this case, which highly suggests that he knows he was convicted of killing her and that he knows he is awaiting execution. They tell me I go bye-bye. And he gave that response to the question about what was the result of your last hearing. That shows a connection between what happened with this court's competency determination and its effect on his pending execution. Now, it doesn't automatically cause that, of course. It's a basic statement, it's a simple statement, but it shows enough under the Eighth Amendment.
So if I understand you right, Mr. Boyer, what you're asserting is that it's not enough for the evaluators to come in and say, hey, we've talked to him and it's our opinion that he doesn't have a rational understanding.
So just in case you were looking at chat, which is what we do, so we missed the case, they have phone calls, jail calls with him that shows that he is perfectly clear and completely sane and not dementia ridden.
The evaluators need to provide like a transcript of the conversation they had with him that demonstrates his irrational understanding or his lack of understanding.
Short of a complete transcript, a more thoroughgoing account of the questions that were asked and the answers that were given. And that's because we're not starting from scratch here. If we had been starting from scratch and this was the first petition that was before the court, it might be a different analysis. But because of this court's findings and conclusions issued on June 6th, very, very recently, Menzies has to show much more than trust our word, believe what we say, our opinions. There needs to be much more than that.
So, I mean, what about that there was that chart that was provided by Dr. Abram?
It only
Visible
happens at one
response to
time.
one of the questions.
It might happen one more time.
I forget the question, but the answer, he just said, I don't know. I think it was the question is, why are they trying to execute?
Would you like to know why you can't hear those phone calls? Would you like to know why? They're not admissible for some reason. So the prosecutor is asking the judge to change his ruling and make these phone calls admissible, but they're not admissible, and I don't know why. Hi, Queen Bee.
His answer was,
I do
don't
too,
know.
Wendy. I do too.
You think we need more than that?
Perhaps. I mean, we have similar responses from the 2024 and 2023 evaluations where he said something to the effect of, I don't know why they're trying to kill me. I'm innocent. Now, there wasn't the follow-up of I'm innocent in these responses, but I think we need more context to really fully understand. And importantly, Menzies hasn't proffered his recent phone calls, which were highly relevant to this court's competency determination. The state is now in possession of 13 recent phone calls between May 7th of this year and July 7th of this year. I won't discuss the nature of those phone calls because they're under a protective order that doesn't allow us to currently to share that with this court, but they are highly relevant to this determination and only further confirm our belief that he cannot raise a significant issue.
So what do I do with that, Mr. Boyer?
Well, you can modify the order. You can modify the order to allow yourself to receive the exhibits. There are other deficiencies with the petition. We only know a few things that Menzies told his experts, as I've said. They often include the quotes of the questions asked of Menzies or his answers or both. While Dr. Abrams Silva opines that there's been a marked decline in his language functioning, she reported another significant decline between her September 2023 and October 2024 evaluations.
Meant to say bullshit.
But again,
I
Menzies'
know.
phone calls, which were vital to this court's findings and conclusions, belied that he could not form the requisite rational understanding. This was an example of where Dr. Abrams Silva's conclusion about Menzies' competency was, quote, contrary to the substantial evidence. Menzies' statements, as I've argued, support that he can form the rational understanding. Menzies' statements from the reports themselves establish that he can form the basic rational understanding required under the Eighth Amendment. The very sparse summary of test results that Dr. Abrams Silva gives in comparison to a previous report where she documented all of his scores in the report. We don't have that. We don't have the raw data. And both experts have essentially doubled down on their previous conclusions, which this court rejected. That strongly decreases the credibility of his death sentence. Excuse me, strongly decreases the credibility of their reports and their recent conclusions. Similarly, Menzies' proffer of DHHS reports does not raise a significant issue warranting a new hearing. In fact, they show Menzies self-reporting his symptoms and medical history to CHS staff. There's no finding from DHHS about any significant cognitive decline, even after Menzies' alleged hypoxic event in February of 2025. And with regard to severe hypoxia that could potentially cause brain damage, I believe Dr. Hyde himself opined that 5 minutes more of oxygen saturation at those levels could lead to brain damage. But again, we don't know how long his oxygen dipped to this level. And the medical reports, both before and after that February event, show his oxygen levels at normal, at room air, and he's receiving supplemental oxygen. Menzies argues that the state has conceded that additional competency evaluations are required before the board. That is entirely incorrect. The state has asked the Department of Corrections to allow Dr. Thompson to reevaluate Menzies, but as Menzies' own proffered emails show, the state sought this evaluation so Dr. Thompson could testify at the Board of Pardons, before the Board of Pardons, at the commutation hearing about his current mental state. The state wants the board to have a full and complete picture of Menzies' mental health before it makes a determination about whether to grant him mercy. The state's purpose was thus to prevent before the board a one-sided defense-curated presentation of his current cognitive state and to assist the board in making an informed decision about whether to commute or not. We did not request the evaluation for purposes of determining whether Menzies is legally competent. We have no doubt that he is, but instead answer Menzies' current.
That's a sentence way worse, Sally. Come on now. That's a nightmare sentence.
Claims before the board of why he believes he deserves mercy. Menzies has objected to Dr. Thompson evaluating him. Again, we do not believe further evaluations are necessary, nor do we believe that there's a significant question about Menzies' competency now. Indeed, after listening to these recent 13 phone calls, we are even more firmly convinced that there is no significant issue here. We simply want the board to have a full and complete picture at the commutation hearing. Now, Menzies has proffered a declaration from Callahan. The state objects to the declaration because it was filed with Menzies' reply 2 days ago without giving the state adequate time to review and respond to it. Menzies does not explain why he could not have obtained this in time to file it with his petition with reasonable diligence. Instead, in a footnote, his counsel state that they only started reaching out to Callahan a week before they filed this excessive petition. They do not explain why they could not have sought or obtained it earlier. In any event,
this is the last time it happens, I'm pretty sure.
About the central question here, and that's whether Menzies is capable of having the basic rational understanding of the reason for his execution. And there are a couple of more observations I have about Callahan's declaration, and then I'll conclude, Your Honor. The declaration says that Menzies uses a walker, not a wheelchair, to get around. It says he uses supplemental oxygen. He repeats himself sometimes. One time he stared at Miss Callahan's pen next to her name badge for 5 minutes and didn't.
Hey, wait, no. Repeating yourself, is that a bad thing? Also, if you repeat yourself, does that mean you have dementia? Repeating yourself can't be bad, right? Although I don't repeat myself.
Process what she was saying. That was one time that she noted. He is less talkative than he used to be, excuse me. But it shows Menzies participated in moral reasoning training classes starting in late 2024 because, quote, he wanted to feel productive. Callahan gave Menzies a certificate of completion for the MRT class, even though she says he failed to meet class requirements. But she doesn't report what he said during these MRT classes, excuse me. Again, a critical omission. We need to know what he says in order to assess whether Callahan's opinion about his answers being shallow is correct. We can't make that conclusion independently based on the current proffer. Overall, the declaration supports that Menzies still engages in conversation and participates in classes that require conversation. It does not support a substantial change in circumstances or raise a significant question. In closing, the court should deny Menzies' successive petition because he has not provided the court with the best evidence of his language functioning, which is at the heart of his expert reports, his recent telephone calls.
I usually remember why I went into the bathroom. That I'm pretty safe and sound. Because actually, I don't really have to remember. Like every time I stand up, it's sort of my first stop because I'm old. I get up, I might as well go to the bathroom since I'm up.
Menzies' expert report shows that he knows without cueing that he is facing execution and that he at the very least knows the victim's last name. And the fact that he knows the victim's last name strongly suggests that he knows he was convicted of killing her. Moreover, his experts do not report asking him outright what crime he was convicted of that put him on death row. These and other deficiencies in the petition and exhibits mean that Menzies' petition and exhibits do not raise a significant issue, warranting reopening the competency issue. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Blair. Mr. Zuckerman?
Thank you. I'm going to try and address these in turn. With the walker, he sits on his walker and is pushed around on it because a wheelchair doesn't fit in his cell. It doesn't, the state is just like, they're trying to pick everything apart, which like, okay, you can do that at a hearing if you want, but the reports are completely valid. They want the question, Dr. Abram Silva, to have asked the question, what charges led to your current death sentence? But what the state statutory standard says is that to be aware, you have to know that you are, what the sentence is, and you have to know why you are to suffer it. If she asks the question, what charges lead to your current death sentence, it gives him the answer, which is why she asked the question, what are the charges associated to your sentence? And in September of 2023, he responded, I'm charged with a capital homicide that I didn't do. In January of 2024, to the same question, he answered, kidnapping and homicide I didn't do. In October 2024, he answered, killing, I guess. And in June, at the end of June 27th, 2025, they don't tell me the details. It shows a clear progression. Dr. Abram Silva documented what she asked him. I mean, they want a transcript. State his own charges associated with the current sentence. Answer, they don't tell me the details. Question, why would the state impose a sentence of execution on him? Answer, they can only lock you up or kill you. Question, well, under what circumstances would those be the choices for a sentencing? Answer, they can only lock you up or kill you. Question, why in general would the state impose a sentence of execution on any person? Answer, lock you up or kill you. I mean, repeating the same sort of coined answer is exactly, it's a telltale sign of progression of dementia. Anyone who has a relative who has suffered dementia knows that, and that's what we're seeing here. The state objects to the declaration. I mean, look, we did our diligence. We did what we could. If the state wants us to refile our petition, I mean, I don't think that sort of procedural technicality should cause this court not to consider critical evidence from a unbiased, impartial Department of Corrections witness. The state has the opportunity to respond to it today, and what are they doing? They're picking apart, what she says about the MRT class. She said he couldn't engage in it. She said he couldn't answer questions. He forgot to show up to the class. He had an inability to remember things. He couldn't dig deep into anything we discussed. He couldn't hit the points of the steps conceptually. The MRT program takes 6 to 8 weeks to complete. He needed more time, and he still didn't complete it. Normal prisoners go through a class, all the steps in one class. It took him 2 to 3 steps to complete one step, even with assistance. Classmates informed me that they frequently helped him with assignments. It was clear he lacked an understanding about the program. The state wrote in an email to the Department of Corrections that I've included that they want to have Dr. Thompson assess Mr. Menzies' claims of mental incompetency and deterioration in commutation proceedings. I mean, they are the ones that said incompetency and not just deterioration. Clearly, they think there's a question about his competency. In a later email, they say, this is in response to the 2 reports that you submitted. The same 2 reports that are before this court, asking this court to issue an independent evaluation. We just got the phone calls too. They are certainly relevant for this.
All right, I lied. I thought it was only 20.
Agree with counsel's characterizations of them. I think that
I do understand how when the video stops, you guys get very upset. Not my Vibers, but like replay crew. I do understand that. Just breathe through it. Breathe through it and you'll be fine. It was just a couple seconds.
That, I've listened to them and I think that I could contextualize them for the court. And I'm happy to do that, but that's not a question for a prima facie case here. You can't sit here and pick apart evidence and say, well, this evidence is weak because maybe it means something else or whatever. The question is, have we alleged a specific change in circumstances that raises a question, significant question about his competency? We've presented 2 expert reports, a declaration from his case manager at the Department of Corrections, a documented history corresponding with this documented the mental decline of physical decline, which even the state's experts testified, could cause the type of decline that we have presented to this court. Dementia progresses. That's what every expert that testified before this court said would happen and said is going to happen. We have presented the evidence of that progression to this court. It raises a significant question about his competency, and all we're asking for is an independent DHS evaluation for the first time in a year, so that if this court is going to allow the execution to go forward, it can do so with the confidence that it will not happen in violation of the 8th Amendment in the United States Constitution.
Thank you, Mr. Zuckerman.
Yes.
Ms. Nostell?
From what I understand, the last time, I think it was a year ago, he did the same thing. He came and he said, I have dementia. You can't execute me. I have dementia. So they got doctors and they got scans. They do have brain scans that show, and this is what happened in the last hearing. Yeah, he has signs of dementia. No, it's not that bad. He can still be executed. And then a couple months later, they got the doctors to say at the prison to say, oh, he's not acting right. He's not acting the way he used to act. So that's why they're in here, because those doctors asked him some questions like, do you know why you're here? No, I have no idea why I'm here. Kelly's here. Pink is here. So yeah, they do have tests that show he has dementia. And the last time they were in court, those tests were, they accepted those tests as for what they are and said he's still fine for execution.
Yes, Judge. I would like to, on behalf of
Josh,
Mr.
thank you
Hunsaker
so
and the
much.
Hunsaker
Thank you.
family to
Thank
ask if
you.
he could make a short statement to your honor today.
So I believe this is a critical hearing where under the Victims' Rights Act, the victim or representative would have the right to address the court. So the answer to that is yes. If you come forward, Mr. Hunsaker.
Thank you.
I walked in here today saying I wasn't going to talk.
Okay. Try to envision this. You have to actually work a little bit to envision this. Okay, guys? This is Maureen's son. She was 24 years old when her throat was slit and she was tied to a tree left to die in the freezing cold. This is her son. So, I mean, let's say she had a rough childhood and had him at 16. He was still very, very young. Most likely she was older than 16. And he was just a tiny little boy when she died. But it's hard to see him as the son because of all the gray hair. But this is Maureen's son.
But, you know, it is what it is all. Make sure that we're out of here, you get home. Sorry that you're not feeling well. We're here today, and I listened to this, and I want to bring up some key things. He keeps saying, I didn't kill her. Right? He's denied it all along. We have gone through 39 years, and every avenue along the way has said he did. So he's basically lied consistently in every evaluation. To every evaluator that he's seen, he has lied because he has denied that he's ever killed my mom. He hasn't even come to the courts when saying, yep, I'm screwed up. I've got issues. I did it, whatnot. He won't do that. We'll never have that before the court. But what I'm going to ask you to do is this just all a game? All these questions that get asked and proffered and everything that's being picked apart by both sides, is he just playing a game? This man, we got to remember, is educated. He's gone through the system. He's got degrees. He's not stupid. We're not before the court now denying whether he killed my mom or not. We're now before the court deciding whether he's played the system long enough to where he gets to find a technicality to spare his life and basically deny justice for my mom. Your Honor, this may be the last time I see you. Maybe not. We may be back. But again, I've told you this. You're an amazing judge. You've done nothing but amazingness for my family. I appreciate everything.
His name is Ralph Menzie. That's the murderer.
And I appreciate you listening to my statements every time, over and over. And again, I told you a year ago when we're here, if you go one way or the other way, we're going to be right back here because it's just going to say it's worse. If we go into this, they've given let's go 60 days and on the 61st, does that mean on the 6th, are they agreeing that if you do this, that the day you say that, okay, he is, they're okay with him being executed the next day? If that's what the judge allows? Oh, no. They're going to want another appeal. They're going to want, he's even worse today. This is never going to stop. So all I'm asking, let's just get this over with. Like, we've been drugged through for 39 years. And I just want to make one thing. This is the first hearing I've heard my mom's name and her address that much in decades. This is the first hearing. So I appreciate everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hunsaker. All right, counsel, as I indicated, I'm going to take this under advisement. I will try to issue a decision as quickly as possible. I know time is ticking, so we'll go as fast as we can. Court will be in recess.
guys, thank you for coming out to my special live stream. You guys made this way better than I thought it was going to be. Chat was awesome. Actually, chat doesn't move this fast at 4:30 in the morning when I normally stream. It was hard keeping up today. Thank you, everybody who supported today. I really, really, really appreciate it. Congratulations, everybody who got memberships. I'm so happy you're members. I got to get a members only out maybe this week so that all you members can see something special. We do have some special videos. I will warn you, there's one members only video that's something like the horrors of prison or a monster in prison or something like that. That you should be warned before you watch this inappropriate material. Stevie, we gotta wait. It's September. They will let us know in September. But Josh will let us know. Because Josh is right there with his thumb right on Utah's news. So we just have to wait. Wait till September until Josh tells us what's going on. I hope you guys have a great, great, great Sunday. Oh, man. Ah, I know. That was so funny. Yeah, make sure you have live chat on when you watch a members only, because that makes it even better. Oh, guys. Thanks a lot for coming out. I'll see you all again real soon. Bye.
Got these life that goes digital dreams through the screen, her blue eyes gleam. Wicked humor, sharp as a knife. Her stream sparks electric light. Late night when the world sleeps, she's the friend that always keeps. Giggles roll like thunder loud. She stands out in any crowd. Kathy's laugh cuts through the gloom. Eyes blue like a summer's bloom. Her humor dark and twisted charm. In a way, there's no alarm. Dream tales late into the night. Her laughter feels just right. Even when my world turns gray, with a giggle, she lights the way. Her eyes near a sky so blue. In her jokes, there's a truth so true. Wicked stream, she brings the light. Turns dark days into bright. Kathy's laugh cuts through the gloom. Eyes blue like a summer's bloom. Her humor, dark and twisted charm. In a way, there's no alarm. Streaming tales late into the night. Her laughter feels just right. Even when my world turns gray, with a giggle, she lights the way. Kathy's laugh